Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. Welcome. On this episode, we will be talking about how to handle boundaries when they're set for you. All right, we're going to talk about something that can kind of feel a little tender and honestly painful, and that's when someone you love sets a boundary on you. I recently met with a client who was struggling with this very thing. A family member had placed some boundaries on their relationship, and she shared with me some of her thoughts. She was concerned because there's a lot of podcast episodes out there about setting boundaries on other people, but she hadn't heard one when someone sets boundaries on you and what you can do. So she felt like there's a lot of therapists out there telling people to set boundaries and really not tell people why they're setting a boundary or what they're setting a boundary for. And she felt like this was concerning because how do you know what to work on? And in the terms of eternal families, she felt like this was kind of harmful because how do you work through difficult things in your eternal family if you don't even know what you're supposed to be working on? But she also recognized that pushing back on those boundaries only created more distance between her and her family members. So she wasn't really sure what to do to help the relationship if she wasn't even sure what to work on. I don't know if you've ever been there. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but it really is a vulnerable place to be because when someone sets a boundary with us, it can feel like rejection. It can feel like we're being shut out or that we failed in this relationship in some way. But here's what I want you to take from today. Boundaries are not the end. They can actually be an invitation to heal us, to grow spiritually, and really learn a way of connecting through Christ. I often think boundaries get this bad reputation, right? They're sometimes seen as walls, as a way of keeping people out. But really, let's look at boundaries as doors. They're a way of saying, this is how I can stay in relationship with you. This is a way that feels safe for me right now. And I know that can feel really frustrating too when you don't even know why the boundary was set in the first place, or maybe you don't agree with the reason the boundary was set at all. And it can feel like maybe pushing back on that reason or getting that person to change their mind will help. But if you try to push back or argue or ignore the boundary at all, what happens? Really more distance. But if we can respect it, something beautiful can happen. The relationship can actually grow. So, what can we do when we're on the receiving end of this boundary? Let's talk about 3 ways you can still be doing something if it feels like you weren't given any concrete information in the first place about what to change or how to improve. So, first of all, when a loved one sets a boundary, it's easy to focus all of our energy on them. Why are they doing this? Don't they see how much I care? Don't they understand what family is all about? But boundaries are an invitation to look inward. Maybe this is the Lord nudging you to pause and ask, what part of this relationship do I need to take responsibility for? What patterns do I need to heal? I've seen this a lot of different times come up in sessions that I have. A parent or a spouse feels devastated by a boundary. But when they take that time to really do their own healing, whether it's working with a therapist, practicing mental health skills, or even just practicing more self awareness, something really shifts. They begin showing up differently. And often that makes the relationship safer for their loved one over time. So if you find yourself in this situation, ask yourself, what's one area of your heart that you know the Lord has been nudging you to work on? Could this boundary be His way of giving you that space to finally address it? Like maybe it doesn't even feel like the thing He wants you to work on is completely related to this boundary that's being set. But any work that you do on yourself can be seen by others. This may be the thing that helps you show the other person you're willing to work on things and that they can open up about their concerns more easily to you. The second thing that you can do if someone sets a boundary on you and you're unsure of what to work on is to use that time to build a deeper relationship with the Savior. Boundaries create opposition, and opposition can feel awful, right? But remember, opposition is also the very thing that gives us the opportunity to grow and need a Savior. When your loved one places a boundary on you, you may feel grief, loneliness, or even anger. And those emotions are real, and the Savior knows them intimately. He experienced rejection, misunderstanding, and betrayal. He also felt everything you have ever felt. This is your opportunity to lean into Him more than ever. Ask Him, what are you trying to teach me here? How can I be more like Thee in this situation? Sometimes we see boundaries as breaking apart eternal families. But what if they're actually giving us practice in eternal principles? Humility, meekness, patience, and charity. President Nelson said, as our willing partner, the Savior will not allow us to fall beyond his reach. Even in our times of suffering and sorrow, he is there to lift and encourage. His power helps us recover from often devastating impacts of others' choices. However, we each must put on the harness and make sure the knots are securely tied. I love what President Nelson says there about the Savior being there to help us through difficult times. But the important part is that we must learn to yoke to Him. This can be an opportunity in the opposition to strengthen your ability to step into that yoke with Him. So instead of looking at the boundary as this dead end or something that is ruining the family, could you ask yourself, how might this opposition or the pain of the boundary be an opportunity for you to know Christ more personally? Pray about that question and then dive in and learn how to more fully yoke to the Savior for His help. All right, the third thing that you can do when a boundary is being set on you that you don't really understand is to use this time to learn to receive daily revelation on how to interact with that person. So here's where this becomes very practical. When someone sets a boundary on you, we often panic, right? How do I reach out? Do I say something? Do I give them space? What if I make it worse? That panic can lead us to act out of fear instead of love. But you don't have to figure it out on your own, right? You have access to daily revelation. The Savior knows your loved one perfectly. He knows how they're wired, what they need, and how to best reach their hearts. So instead of pushing back or guessing, you can ask the Savior, how do you want me to show up today? Sometimes the answer is going to be give them space. Sometimes it's send a short text with no expectations in return. Other times it might be show love in a different way by focusing on serving others around you. Personal revelation can be the key to strengthening the relationship, but you have to be very careful not to assert your will in the situation. President Nelson said, He will deliver you from your most excruciating circumstance in His own way and time. As you come unto Him in faith, He will guide, preserve, and protect you. He will heal your broken heart and comfort you in distress. He will give you access to His power, and He will make the impossible in your life become possible. I love what he said there. Through personal revelation, He can turn all things for your good. He can guide you in this impossible situation. Take this time to really increase your ability to receive personal revelation in situations where you don't see any solutions. What would change if instead of reacting, you paused each day and asked the Savior, what do you want me to do today in this relationship? I know that these solutions don't seem like they're immediate. They're not going to do something immediate for this relationship. But remember that through small and simple things, great things are brought to pass. As you do your own healing, as you build that relationship with the Savior and you lean into daily revelation, you can turn this situation into something that changes you, something that makes you more like Him and not something that creates more distance from your loved one and from who you're meant to become. Also, remember that boundaries don't mean rejection. They mean, I want to stay in this relationship, but this is what I need to feel safe right now. And we need to honor that. And trust has a chance to grow if we do honor that. So if you're hurting because someone you love has set a boundary, I want you to know you're not powerless. This is not the end. Through Christ, there's always a way forward. Okay. I know that's a lot. Maybe you want to come back and listen to that again and write those things down, or maybe just write some thoughts that are coming to your mind as the Savior might be prompting you about your personal situations. But if this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need this message. As you go through your week, remember that healing is possible. Relationships can be strengthened, and the Savior will guide you every single step of the way. All right. I hope this was helpful. Reach out and let me know if it was, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like and links for other mental health resources on my website.